Okay, what a pleasure to have John Spell here, WYLA Radio here at Downtown Library. Thanks to Kevin Carruthers and the station for inviting us down and making this possible. John Spell, you were born in 1935, I know.
Correct.
All right, so how long have you been playing this instrument, your Hawaiian steel guitar?
Oh, well, actually, I started taking lessons 1 week before I was 6 years old, so that was like, 1941. And from there, about a year after, I started playing a little bit, USO, and we played the military hospitals that was here, Stark General Hospital, whatever. These wounded soldiers would come back, and we'd go there and play for them, and never knew you could make money playing music until years later.
Yeah, well, you've been a very, very active and busy musician through the years, and we'll get to that, a little bit of the history. But it all started when a music teacher came to your home, as I understand. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was interesting because actually a guy was walking the street like a door-to-door salesman, and he had a little acoustic guitar, and he knocked on the door, and he wanted to give a lesson free. And so back then we were supposed we'd take anything free, so we took a free lesson.
Was he selling vacuum cleaners too, or?
No, actually he was just Stars of Tomorrow studio, and he would give a demonstration, and he had a guitar and all the frets were numbered, and he had a sheet of music there with the numbers, and just a thumb pick, hadn't graduated that yet, just a thumb pick and a flat bar. And the name of the song was Narrow My God to Thee. Well, once he explained it to me, I played it. And
you were almost 6 years old.
Yeah. Oh. I played Narrow My God to Thee, and I think I really amazed my dad and all. So that's where it all started. And the lessons were like, $6 to start and $1.25 for a lesson. And of course, there was bus fare across town because we lived on the other side of town. And but my father, he managed it. And after the first course, which was 72 weeks, they'd let you have the guitar. And of course, at that point, you wanted to trade it in and get an electric, at that time. But that's where it all started and regressed from.
And it was a number system.
It was numbers. Everything was numbers. Basically, during that first 72-week course. And of course, after the 72-week course, then there was a course that they called the professional course. Well, that's where they got into the notes. And I never did care for notes. That was Chinese to me, and I could not read that.
Yeah,
So,
as you said, your ear was so far ahead of the note on the page, even at that time. So it was a lucky thing when he came by. You talk about fate, and that your father recognized your talent, and that put you on the road to this long. And it's just a delight to me to hear you play.
Well, it was easy at that point to recognize numbers. Had he come up with a sheet of music with notes, that would have been the end of it right there, because it would have been too complicated for someone my age, But worked out great.
Well, give us a little demonstration of an early song that you played back in that time when you go out and play at the hospital or other locations.
Okay, like I say, we played square dance at USO on Meeting Street here in Charleston. On Tuesday evening, there was a gentleman, Charles Pink, that used to call square dances around Charleston, and he was pretty well known for calling square dances. And we used to entertain at the USO. I believe it was like 7 to 9, because remember, I was in school, so I couldn't play a nightclub or anything like that. But
we were about 8, 9 years old here.
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
Probably about 8. Yeah.
Okay. So what'd you think? Red River Valley was something you might do?
That was a square dance song back when.
And you played it like that in a similar style? I mean,
Yeah, it was not real fast square dancing like you hear the fiddle players play today with the shuffle and bow. And the square dancing was not done quite as fast at the time, or at least it wasn't with Charlie's rendition of it.
and what kind of crowd would he get? Like hundreds of people show up?
Well, it was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, remember now, this was basically all military guys and their girlfriends, you know. And so it was, I must say, probably 50, 60 people, something like that, you know. But
So did they recognize you as the whiz kid on the?
no, all they were interested was dancing.
Dancing and their girlfriends.
Time,
right?
yeah.
All right, well, take us up to the next step. Well, how about the instrument? Did you got the instrument at the end of the 72 weeks?
Well, at this time, now, I had, this was probably after the 72 weeks because I had an electric instrument. I had purchased, or my dad had purchased for me, a Hawaiian guitar, electric Hawaiian guitar, Wahoo, and a little amplifier. I believe the combination of the two was either $150 or $175.
Oh, that was some big money.
A lot
Wow.
of money back then. And my poor dad, I don't know how he studied, but he managed it. But that was the instrument that I played, was the little Wahoo, lap steel.
Let's move on to the early radio years of when you first appeared on the radio and where the radio stations were and the whole arrangement then.
Well, I played on several of the radio stations here in Charleston, but one of them years ago, we had a real early, and I don't remember what group I played with, but we had a real early radio show, like 6 o'clock in the morning. Play the show before I went to school. And it was, I believe it was WHAN or whatever. It was on Buchanan Street down there somewhere in Charleston. And again, at that point, I didn't know that you could make money playing that. It was all for fun.
That was a pretty exciting thing to get up early in the morning and be on the radio.
Yeah.
And then would your classmates say they heard you on the radio?
You know, believe it or not, I didn't get a whole lot of feedback from there because I guess they had sense enough to use that time to sleep, you know.
Okay, let's move up a little bit later to, is it WFAK that later became WPAL? Was that
Right.
one of the early stations you played on?
Played with a group there called the Palmetto Boys, I believe was it, Pop Hensley, playing fiddle.
Oh, yeah.
And from there was a group organized from that group called the Blue Ridge Mountaineers. And
So we're post-World War II now, is 46, 47?
we're talking 46, 47, something in that area. And
So everything was live on the radio, I mean, at this point.
yeah, oh yes. Yeah.
So it'd be a bunch of bands that would line up to play? Or?
On Saturdays, yes, Saturday mornings up until midday, there would be one band right after another. And then in the afternoons, there would be another type of, well, it'd either be a record playing show or either some other type of entertainment. But Saturday morning was pretty much all country, or wasn't country back then, it was hillbilly.
Right.
All hillbilly music.
Absolutely.
And we played, and from that group, the Blue Ridge Mountaineers, and incidentally, Smokey Joe Ellis played fiddle with that group, Blue Ridge Mountaineers. And from that group, went with a group called the High Neighbor Boys, and that was a group that had sort of disbanded. Some of the members of that group had gone out of town, and so it was in the process of reorganizing. So anyhow, Duke Roberts, a lot of people around Charleston remember Duke Roberts.
So that was the first band you played in with the
That
Duke
was
Roberts.
the first band I
High
played in
Neighbor
with Duke
Boys.
Roberts, right, High Neighbor Boys. And it was Duke Roberts and myself and Jeff Gaskins and a guy that was from the same area that Duke Roberts was from in Horry County, Don Williams. And he was the main singer and guitar player. And
So let's do something kind of from that era. Can we do like a Eddie Arnold was like, Tennessee Plowboy was very popular
yeah.
in that era. Well, let me try a little bit of Don't Rob Another Man's Castle. They say a man's home is his castle. He's like a king on his throne. It may be a shack alongside the track, but everything in it's his own. Don't think of taking his loved one. It's written, thou shalt not steal. I robbed another man's castle. Now someone just stole her from me. That takes me back to about 1947, 48.
A few years, yes.
I should introduce the very fine bass man we've got with us here, John F. Kennedy. Thank you so much for helping us out. Very versatile player, and he wasn't playing country music back in that era, but he's got the right feel for it. We appreciate that. So, when did you first start playing on TV? Should we progress a little further from the late 40s to the beginning of the TV era, or does he want to squeeze something in between there?
No, that's because basically we just played square dances during that early in the 40s, you know. But in the 50s, probably 53, 54, shortly after Channel 5 went on the air, we had been playing nightclub, but we got joined with a gentleman that had a pipe and book corner show. It's sort of a talk show on TV. Bob Tamlin was his name. And I think what he liked was a little music, and we somehow or another got joined up with him and actually became, at times, staff musicians for that station.
Well, didn't you open the station? Weren't you the first live music?
No, we did
on
not
that?
open the station. Station opened, I believe, in July of 1953. So it was probably the latter part of 53 or sometime the early part of 54 that we went on the air there.
And you were on a couple times a day?
We were on from 12 to 12:30 and 5:30 to 6, I believe it was, 5 days a week.
Wow, it kept you busy. So that
and
was
we
it.
also had a show called the Howdy Wagon Show, I believe it was. This was more of a Western theme for music and all. That was 7 to 7:15 Monday through Friday. So we had 3 shows a day.
Did you have a day job at the same time?
No, I was
Well,
full-time.
I can imagine how you could.
No, that was keeping us pretty busy. And one of the big problems, it was all live, like you said. And we played from 7 to 7:15, and a lot of our shows were scheduled to start at 8 or no later than 8:30. And they all weren't right in the Charleston area, Beaufort, wherever.
Oh, so you'd pack up and hit the road.
And we had some very, very kind law enforcement back then that I feel like turned their heads a few times when we were trying to.
What was the name of the group then?
I'm sorry?
The group that you were playing with?
That was the Party Liners.
Party Liners. So you went from High Neighbor to Party Liners, or something in between there?
No, that was it. As a matter of fact, the the Party Liners was originated from the High Never Band. And the leader of the High Never Band, he got drafted in service of all the people. You know, I thought they would get Duke Roberts or myself. We were a little bit younger, and they took our bass man and made a soldier out of him. And so that's where Greasy Medlin was a well-known friend of Gene Ray that was in the band, and he contacted him, Greasy at the time was playing with Snuffy Jenkins, with a group out of Florence.
Oh, Slim Mims.
Slim Mims, right. And anyhow,
we're getting a history of country music in South Carolina, because you were there when all this, when you first could become a professional musician. Because as you said, people played for fun. It wasn't much money in a music business, but it developed into it so that you were, able to support a family at this time, playing music, doing pretty well. I think I'd like to do maybe a Hank Williams number.
Sounds good.
We're both admirers and friends of the late Don Helms, and his sound, the band sound, really was a big part of the whole Hank Williams popularity.
Right.
Well, I'm going to take these chains from my heart. Take these chains from my heart and set me free. You've grown tired and no longer care for me. All my faith in you is gone, but the heartaches linger on. Take these chains from my heart and set me free. Come on. Take these tears from my eyes and let me see just a spark of the love that used to be. Then if you no longer care for the love that's beating there, take these chains from my heart and set me free. Take these chains from my heart and set me free. Yeah, I sound like drifting cowboys there.
My good buddy Don Helms, he was over at your place, your music store one day, and we were talking to him, and I asked him, how did he happen to develop the style that it fits so well with Hank Sr.'s singing? And he said Hank was a great part of that. That Hank told him, when I'm singing high notes, you play low, and when I'm singing low notes, you play high. And he said that's where the style came from, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Little anecdote stories like that really mean a lot. You figure out how these styles develop. It's nothing too complicated, but they just figure out what fits.
Right.
Well, so you were on TV at this time, and you were playing clubs and a number of different clubs, but there was one club that you opened. You personally didn't open, but you were the first band to play there, became the house band. Tell us a little bit about, was first called the Supervisors Club and then the Bayou Club, and when did that all begin?
Now, the Bayou Club and Supervisors Club, that came before TV. We were on radio 5 days a week. I might have got a little ahead of myself, but we were on radio 5 days a week before we got into TV. And we played a club that was originally a skating rink, to give you an idea of the size of the club. and it'd hold 800,000 people, I guess, you know. But
And that's on Sproul Avenue?
that was on Sproul Avenue.
Is the building still there?
I believe it is. Hadn't been that way in quite some time, but I believe it's still there. Not as a club, but it's still there. It was originally called the Supervisors Club because the owner was an employee of the Naval Shipyard here, and he opened up a membership club for civil service employees, and that was what he numbered supervisors because he was a supervisor in the department he worked. And then when he was approached by our band leader about turning it into an open club for the public, that's when they changed the name. Well, they went ahead and opened it up as the Supervisors Club, a non-membership club. But then after a short while, they changed it to the Bio Club. And
That was the place. Everybody from the Navy base, everybody wanted to go out and dancing and drinking and have a good time and hear some really, really good country music. That was the place.
It was. It was one of the two. I won't mention the other one because the band leader originated from that other nightclub business, and he left that group and organized the Silver River Boys for the. But anyhow, it was Dub Phillips that was our leader, and a lot of people remember Dub Phillips from around Charleston. He was run radio for years. Even after we stopped playing music, he was in radio. But we played there 6 nights a week and did a radio show 5 days a week. So that was full-time work also.
So part of it, besides your innate talent and good ear, and is just the fact that you played so much. It's probably, I mean, if you do something that many hours a day, you should get a little bit better at it.
Well, it used to be a fun thing because there's certain people that you lean on and bounce off of, and Duke Roberts was one of those people. Duke played guitar as well as fiddle and a lot of other instruments, but he and I used to have a ball, especially on square dances, bouncing off each other with different licks and what have you, guitar
right,
licks.
and then harmonizing each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I first came to Charleston, it was about 1984, and I was looking around for country music. It was my dearest love, and I had to make sure they had some really good country music. And Clarence Jackson, who was on the radio up in Monk's Corner, says, well, the two masters you got to see are Duke Roberts and Johnny Spell. And he was absolutely right. I mean, you could have asked anybody in town, they'd say these are the two masters. It took a little while before I found where you were playing. And I didn't know you were there, but I pulled up to the Radar Club where you were playing with the Beeliners. This is 1984. And I was out in the parking lot behind where the bandstand was, and I heard the music. I heard about, half a minute's worth. I says, thank goodness, I finally found home here. It was just, with you in the band, everybody sounds better. And the same thing with Duke Roberts. Your inspirations to somebody that loves country music. It just makes it sound right and authentic. So, okay, I patted down to black enough there, but so I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have one other Duke Roberts kind of friendly competition story that you told me about. Tell us about the saxophone story, and then I'll let you get back on your track.
Okay. We were playing a club in the city, and the club owner, he was going to rent Folly Beach Pier for the summer months. And he says, our country music good, said, but we need a horn. We're going to Folly Beach, we're going to be dealing with a younger group of people. So we need a saxophone or some horn of some kind. So I don't know how the conversation went. Otherwise, I made a challenge to him that I would buy me a saxophone, and I'd be playing by the time we got ready to go to Folly Pier. I had never had a saxophone in my hand in my life. So I went down and bought a used saxophone, and Duke Roberts, he got interested. He did the same thing. Incidentally, this guy made a monetary bet with us, about $50, I think, which was pretty good back then. And Duke and myself got together, and we learned Night Train, I think it was, and C chord. Just about everything we played was in C chord, but who cared? Nobody knew it. But we weren't playing the musicians anyhow. We were playing to the audience. And he paid off. The guy paid off, but it worked out real well. And Duke and I played sax, not as a full-time instrument, but we'd pick it up every so often during the course of the night and do a little difference,
Yeah. One time, when he played with the Drifting Troubadours, he played that combination bass and guitar instrument that had 2 bass strings on it, and it sounded like he's playing 2 instruments at the same time. But we were playing outside somewhere, and the power went out. And I had heard that he played the fiddle. So the power went out. He just picked up my fiddle, and he just nailed it. He played perfectly in tune, and I don't think he'd picked one up in, I don't know, been a while.
Oh, yeah.
So he was good at just everything he picked up.
Well, getting back to you and the compliment I was trying to throw on you a while ago, and you were talking about the Radar Club that you came and heard us at first. When you brought your fiddle in, Rick Edwards, he just loved Ray Price songs. And he did a Ray Price song, and you did the fiddle just like Ray's.
Oh, Tommy Jackson styles, yeah.
And I said, boy, this guy would be great if he was with us full time.
Let's do The Other Woman. I don't know if you know The Other Woman. Don't tell your girlfriend if you do. I mean, but I'll introduce you. She's in the key of D. Don't accuse me of being without feeling. If you do, then you know that you're wrong. For it was you who was careless, and you drove me into another's arms. The other woman isn't prettier than you, but the other woman soothes my aching pride. And more important, I feel wanted again. I can't give up the other woman in my life. I'm afloat in the middle of the river, and I can't climb out on either side. So if I go over the deep end, it's because, sweetheart, you haven't tried. The other woman isn't prettier than you, but the other woman soothes my aching pride. And more important, I feel wanted again. I can't give up the other woman in my life. I can't give up the other woman in my life. Makes you want to dance, doesn't it? Find some other woman to dance with.
Don't get me in trouble now on this.
No. When did you start working a day job and give up the music as a full-time career?
Probably in 1950. Oh, I had done some part-time day work, over the years doing that. Matter of fact, Pop Hensley that played the fiddle, I worked in a awning shop with him. He taught me how to read a tape measure and how to cut metal and stuff like that. And I did that as a part-time. And of course, Pop Hensley would allow me to be off in time enough to make a radio show, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And he, being a musician, he really was helpful there. But I decided after I left TV that I needed to get a job a little more substantial that you could depend on.
And you worked at the Coburg Dairy, was
right,
that?
a job that had some benefits. At that point, I had a young son, and I saw the need to have some benefits, some medical benefits. And so that's when I left TV. I left that group. They still performed for a while after I left. But
so the dairy was back then was right where the Coburg cow you turned down there, and
right.
That's where all the cows were back then.
I became a very successful milkman because this was home delivery. When I knocked on a door, people thought they were looking at their TV, and it really helped me in getting customers and making a career. I was with Coburg Dairy right at 20 years. And now I played music on the weekends a lot.
Oh, absolutely, I know that.
Yeah.
You played almost every weekend.
Yeah, a whole lot, yes.
Always, I mean.
As a matter of fact, from that point on, basically all of my music was weekend, playing.
Now, I'm going to get back to the Bayou Club. Just they would have big name Nashville artists come in, and you would back them up. A lot of times they might bring one or two musicians with them, but
Yes.
you were the backup band for a number of musicians, and you brought some of those pictures with. But just tell us a few of the people that you got to know and played with.
Right. Well, most of the time they did not have a band. For instance, Farron Young, he was at Fort Jackson in Columbia in training, and I think he became good friends to his commanding officer because he had just recorded his first hit. I forget what it was, but anyhow, he came down and not as a guest, but as a paid guest. But I won't mention how reasonable we got Farron Young to come to that club. But we backed him all the way because he did not have a band. Hawkshaw Hawkins.
Yeah, I saw the picture of that one.
And we also played a show other than in that in the Bayou Club. We played a show in Orangeburg one time with Hawkshaw Hawkins too, and the National Guard Army there, I think it was. And Hawkshaw was quite a character with a whip, And
yeah, did he have his horse with him too?
No, he just had his whip.
Yeah.
But the little guy that did that booked the job, he's also the same one that used to bring all the Grand Ole Opry shows to Charleston. But Hawkshaw was having fun. He was running him around that auditorium with that whip. This was before we were set up now, before the crowd came in. But he was a fun guy to work with. And
all
Don
these
Gibson.
these artists, that you're mentioning, I play their records every Sunday night
Yeah.
at 9 p.m. right here on WYLA. Thanks to our public library and Kevin Carruthers for making that possible. I put a little plug in there. But
Now, Don Gibson, who was also there, he was also from, as I understand, from Shelby, North Carolina, this guy that was in our band, Gene Ray, he was from Shelby, North Carolina. So they knew each other personally. But anyhow, we had Don Gibson,
Ray Price, you showed me the
Ray Price and Don Helms and Jerry Rivers. That was part of Hank Sr.'s old band, Jerry Rivers and Don Helms.
Right, when
This was after
Hank Williams
passed
died,
away.
Ray Price
Anyhow,
took
they
over
were
the
doing a
band for a
show.
while.
They were doing a show in Charleston, and they came by and sat in one evening after their show in Charleston at the county hall. That was where all the big Grand Ole Opry shows at the time. But yeah, there's quite a few that come by. And we
Now, would you rehearse with them, or would they usually come up and just call a song?
called a song.
This is a talent that's kind of disappearing in a way. I mean, John Kennedy's got it because had you ever played The Other Woman before?
I have
No. So you just if you got big ears and you,
Yeah.
how many different ways can it go? But it's more fun in a way. I mean, rehearsing is good. There's no doubt about that. But if you use your ear and figure out, don't have to copy the arrangement on the record. So whenever we play with John Spell, I just name a song and he'll even count the right tempo and he kicks songs off that you haven't heard in 40 or 50 years. It's
I'll tell you something that goes back a little bit when we were talking about this, the group called the Blue Ridge Mountaineers. There was a lady that used to come down, was on crutches, she was an amputee. Very, very smart lady and had a great voice. And she knew shorthand. I never have figured out what shorthand is, but I knew what she could do. The guys would need the words to a song, and she'd play the record. And once she got through with the record, she'd have the words for them.
so that's how you got lyrics for the records.
Oh, man, she was great. I mean, we could learn a song like that, because we had the tune. All we needed was the words. And besides being, now she was just a guest on a radio show. She was not a regular band member, but great lady, great lady.
Something came to mind about the tuning of the steel guitar, and then we can talk a little about Jerry Byrd, who a lovely vibrato you get is reminiscent of the sound of Jerry Byrd. I mean, just a trademark. I can tell his playing pretty quickly because of the tone and the vibrato. But tell us just a little bit about the tuning of the guitar and how you learned the Jerry Byrd style.
Jerry Byrd had a tuning on his guitar that was just about to run me up the wall, because I'd hear him play songs like Blues, Stay Away From Me and stuff like that, and I could not get the sound that Jerry Byrd had. And of course at that time he was a master steel guitar player, and come to find out over the years that his Hawaiian style integrated into the hillbilly music was where he was getting such a unique tone and sound. But nevertheless, we had a bass player in that band, in the same Blue Ridge Mountaineers band, I believe it was. His name was Tex Pell from Jackson, Mississippi. I'll never forget this. He drove a taxi during the daytime and played music when we played at night. We went to play one night and he had a double neck. At the time, I was playing just a single neck student guitar. He had a double neck, beautiful guitar. And he had one neck tuned in the tuning that I played in regular. The other neck, he had this new Jerry Byrd tuning, which later on I found out to be called C6 tuning. He says, tell you what, you play on that C6 neck. He didn't know he said, you play on that Jerry Byrd neck tonight, and that guitar's yours. I thought he was really cutting fool with me. But just the sound of that tuning, and I wanted so bad to play those songs like Jerry Byrd played, at the style he played. And it seemed like it just came to me like that. And that's where my first double neck steel guitar came from. A beautiful, smoky colored Supro double neck.
Wow. Well, we have rehearsed this one just a little bit. This is a pretty famous instrumental Jerry Byrd called Stealin' the Blues, and we'll be in the key of D flat for those listening. So very, very well done. What a treat.
That was one of Jerry's famous instrumentals back.
So tricky in the key of D flat. He
Yeah,
uses
yes,
that
yeah.
so he can use some of the open strings to
Yeah.
harmonize.
Mhm. Now, Jerry Bird may have had a little different tuning than the C.
Oh, he had extra string. He had a 7-string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I've also heard of people tuning from C6 down to B flat 6, which would put it at a different position, As a matter of fact, I did that one time trying to get his tone. I moved from C6 to B flat 6 because the strings weren't as tight.
Uh-huh.
And I knew nothing at all about buying gauged strings back at the time. I would buy different sets of strings and make my own mix to try to get what I wanted.
I think we might have discussed this, but I'm curious. When did you transition from the Hawaiian steel guitar with no pedals to the pedal steel guitar?
Actually,
And what prompted you to do it? I mean,
this
it's
happened during the time that we were on TV, or just before 53, 54. There was a Grand Ole Opry show at County Hall in Charleston, and steel guitar player Shot Jackson, I believe it was playing steel, and Duke Robertson and I managed to worm our way into the back behind stage. And he actually had somewhat of a homemade rig on his pedal steel at the time. And it was just changed 2 strings from E to A, So I left my guitar with a friend of mine that worked at a machine shop that I had gone to school with. Basically told him what I wanted, no measurements or anything. Went and picked it up a week later. He charged me $20, and I had a perfect pedal steel guitar. That would,
so
but
it just had one pedal. One
pedal would change 2 strings, and it would change from E to A. And I didn't know this from years later, but some of the steel guitar players around Charleston, they would see me changing notes without moving my bar. I stood up to play it on the pedal steel guitar, incidentally. At that
This was
time.
on TV, so they'd focus on your.
They would focus right on the guitar, not the pedal.
Right.
And they'd hear me changing notes.
The
and
bar
couldn't
wasn't
figure-
moving.
Bar wasn't moving, and I didn't know at the time that I was causing a problem with them. But
It drove him crazy. Well, from that, of course, it developed into all of these. The steel guitar that you were playing at the time at the Radar Club, how many pedals and knee levers did that have? That was the full range, right?
That eventually I bought an Emmons double neck, double 10-string, 8-foot pedals and 4 knee levers, and I still have that steel.
Yeah. Oh, I love to hear you play the pedal steel guitar, but
It's too heavy to carry right now.
you got to carry the giant amplifier and all that stuff. It's a lot of work to carry it.
Yeah.
There's one we're going to change the tempo just a slight bit, getting a Latin groove that I especially enjoy hearing you play is Adobe Hacienda. In my Adobe Hacienda, there's a touch of Mexico. Cactus lovelier than orchid, blooming in the patio. Soft desert skies and the strum of guitar seem to make spirits bright. In my Adobe Hacienda, life and love are more complete. Arriba.
Hey, we all stopped together.
Well, it's pretty close. What a treat. Thank you so much, John Spell. So, anything you'd, well, from the Coburg Dairy, I know that, I'm going to just speak a little bit more about your non-musical professional career. You repaired and maintained the dialysis machinery, and a very commendable, good work to do, and you did it extremely well, because I know the lady at the clinic, and they call on you, and you kept those machines in tip-top shape. And
That was the last place that I used an alarm clock. Right after I left there, I did retire from there. But it was a great place to work. Yes, I went to where I worked there about 20 and a half years, worked on dialysis equipment and the water system. They sent me to a factory in San Francisco, right off in San Francisco, Walnut Creek. Several other places that they sent me for training over the years. But yeah, it was a little bit hard decision to make, because when you work for a place for 20 and a half years and you like the people, they almost like they become family to you, you know.
yeah, I know they were crazy about you there.
Oh, yes. And they gave me a great retirement party that I'll never forget. And I still go by occasionally and visit, and when somebody retires, I usually get an invite. So, yeah, a great place. I've never worked a bad place. I'm a people person. I love people as much as they'll let me love them. You know? I hate to say it, but I probably could be as mean to people as they would try to be mean to me, but I don't like that side of life.
John, I really do admire your music and you as a person. It's just a pleasure having you here on the show. And I want to thank John again, for John Kennedy on the bass. And something else you think you'd like to close out with? I'll let you pick the last thing.
Take the A train?
Oh yeah, we didn't get to your jazzy side. You know that.
Give our bass man
Oh yeah.
opportunity to
yeah, let's let
start
Johnny
that.
do something here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 2, 3, 4.
like we
How about
rehearsed
that bass
even.
man?
Mighty good bass man. Yeah, I was sorry that Riley Hart, our usual bass guy, couldn't be here, but Johnny, you did a super job. And thank you, Kevin Carruthers. Thank you, all the WYLA and the Public Library for making this possible. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. We had an interview in a few years ago, but this is even better, the interview and demonstration combination.
Oh, thank you so much, Roger.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure indeed.
I'll tell you what. Well, you could do 2 numbers.
What's that?
You could do 2, about 2
Whatever,
numbers.
yeah. Or one or,
Okay, why don't you sing one and then we'll take it up with Panhandle Rag.
okay. So something to sing in one. E is where you do it? Okay, so just do something in E and then we can bump up to that. Think of one of my E, an old E song that I don't do too often.
Champs.
How about, Born to Lose? I don't know if I can get an E, but maybe. We can modulate, right? Born to Lose about D. Born to lose, I've lived my life in vain. Every dream has only brought me pain. You've grown tired, and now you say we're through. Born to lose, and now I'm losing you. Solamente pa' perder nací. Cada sueño en vano fue de ti. Tanto que yo sufrí por tu querer. Solamente pa' perder nací. Born to lose, and now I'm losing you. Yeah. I told you once I didn't know you could play in Spanish. Yeah, I got that from Johnny Rodriguez. Born to Lose in Spanish, too. Well, let's close her out with the instrumental. Yeah, man. That's some good jamming there. That ought to make 'em an hour, I hope. Close enough. Thank you, Kevin.